that, my friends, is interplanetary climate change, which is NASA's hottest secret. Solar activity is the highest it's been in 8,000 years. That wasn't there in infrared photos prior to 1995. It just showed up in 95. It's like the planet's on fire. Nobody's ever seen anything like this before. If they did, it would have been documented. It hasn't ever been seen before. This is a huge, huge change. There are mythologies from all over the world that were given by the gods, and they encoded this secret message. These two historians, Santian and Van de Shen, very professional, cutting-edge, peer-reviewed journals that they wrote their studies for, until they wrote Hamlet's Mill, proving, in fact, that there was information encoded in these myths from all over the world regarding this weird thing called the precession of the equinoxes, which is a slow counter-rotating wobble in the Earth's axis that takes 25,920 years to complete and changes the position of the stars in the night sky on the equinox, hence precession meaning movement of the equinoxes. Every 72 years they're going to move by 1 degree. That's been going on all along. It's part of what happens. And we now know that the real cause of precession is that we're orbiting another star. This was discovered by Walter Cruttenden, as I've said, proving that we live in a binary solar system. He's got a lot of evidence that really shows that. His book Lost Star talks about that black sun, as some people have called it, which I believe is going to be a brown dwarf, and we're orbiting this, and the speed changes over time, as I've been saying. So here it gets slower, and then as we go towards it at the end of the age, end of the 25,000 year cycle of orbit, it goes faster, meaning that we're moving through more space, meaning that we're moving through more source field energy, so we're going to get a vibrational increase. We're going to get changes not just in what we think of as normally being the golden age, but also changes in the planets, and that's what we're going to get into in this episode, interplanetary climate change and how that all relates. Now, the ancient myths used often the metaphor of the grain mill, where the axle of the mill represents the Earth's axis and the spinning of the millstone represents the rotation of the Earth. The millstone actually is grinding out qualities of food that gets worse and worse over time, and eventually the whole axle breaks. And that's when we get thrown into the golden age. The gods, Frida and Freya, which could represent two stars, actually save the day. And again, all these prophecies, these are all the major world myths. It's over 30 of them. So it includes everything. They all say that it leads to a golden age. Isn't that something? They're saying that something big is going to happen at the end of the age. And I knew way back when I encountered these prophecies in the 90s that if something this big is really going to happen, if we're going to go through this, what they're basically calling a dimensional shift, then there has to be incredible science that can prove that that's going to happen. And that, my friends, is interplanetary climate change, which is NASA's hottest secret. Indeed it is. When I did this image back years ago, I didn't even realize why I put this little guy in there, but that's the companion star, and I only realize this now. At the time I was saying, oh, it's the center of the galaxy, but it's not. I had actually drawn the companion star psychically years before I knew what I was actually going to discover. Now that's an actual scale model of the sun compared to the planets. The sun contains 99.86% of all the mass in the solar system. It's huge. The planets are just little specks of sand by comparison. This interplanetary climate change is the smoking gun of the Mayan calendar end date, the 2012 scholarship. We're past the 2012 date. So this stuff becomes very important now. I'm going to take you through a guided tour now of studies from NASA. Remember, NASA was created as a defense agency of the United States government. Look up their charter. And it said that they could classify anything that they find for national security if it's inimical to national security, which of course means inimical to the state secrets of Freemasonry, which is part of the government. It's a Masonic symbol that you're looking at right there. So now let's check this out first of all. This is a combined graph of all different core samples from the Earth's ice caps, which combine together to show us that the solar activity is the highest it's been in, oh my God, how did he do that? You want to see that again? I know you do. Let's try it one more time. Ah, yes, it works. 8,000 years. It's incredible. How did we get to this point? The sun is so big that it's going to do stuff to all the planets as it gets hotter and hotter, and that's exactly what we see. I struggled on Mercury for years and years, but finally in 2008, the Messenger space probe went past Mercury and found magnetic pressure. It had actually grown a magnetic field that it didn't have in the 1970s when other space probes went by, like Mariner 10. The magnetic field had significant pressure in several areas, as we see here. A year later, they go back and they find magnetic tornadoes, which didn't even exist in 2008. So this is a massive change, and all the places that you see on the right that are blue are the changes in the magnetic field of Mercury that were not there when Mariner 10 went by. Now let's go to Venus, and again, I'm only giving you some highlights of a much larger presentation. Venus had a 2,500% increase in the green night side glow just between 78 and 99. And this is a NASA-based study from SRI International. This green stuff is oxygen. The atmosphere is changing and having more oxygen in it, and it's glowing on the night side. Mars did not used to have clouds, and now it's got clouds and ozone. Just from 75 to 97, they showed up out of nowhere. Mars is also having global warming, where the ice caps are melting from year to year, and it's actually being called global warming by NASA. But there's no SUVs on Mars, my friends. At least nothing that's publicly acknowledged. But who knows? I think if they had cars over there, it's probably not going to be running on gas. Anyway, then we also see an enormous dust storm that appears on Mars. Check this out. If this happened on Earth, it would be the end of life as we know it, occurring between June 26th and September 4th, 2001. Now, what's that date really close to? 9/11. It appears that the planet of war is having some telepathic conduit with us, and this is a big discussion that I'm not scientifically proving here, but in my new book, Synchronicity Key, I do. That we can extend our consciousness backwards in time. Time is not linear, and events that happen in one cycle can affect another cycle. Here, it seems that we went back in time just a little bit because everybody on Earth is freaking out, and it actually affected Mars very directly. Jupiter grew this donut of energy around the planet, which is called a torus of plasma, and it wasn't even there before 1974. Then, between the years 1979 and 1995, this torus increases in density by 200%. And in typical scholarly detachment, NASA says, yeah, it's stronger than expected. Right. I mean, come on, this is huge. A 200% increase in the density, it's incredible. A 50% increase in the density of each individual particle, yeah, it exceeded our expectations. No big deal. It is a big deal. This is a huge planet, and there's this massive tube of energy growing around it in just a few years. It wasn't there before. Now check this out. These volcanic, well, they're not volcanic, these are heat vents on the surface of Jupiter. They disappeared. There was 3 of them. They turned into 1 just in 3 years' time. And this guy, Dr. Philip Marcus, believed that it would cause 18 degrees of global warming on Jupiter in only a decade. And he was right, because he published that in 2000. And then here in 2008, there's raging thunderstorms, which they're calling a global upheaval on Jupiter. Check out those arrows, those hot spots. That's white on the infrared scale. That's very, very bright. And they'd never seen anything like it before. They're calling it a global upheaval. They say the cause has yet to be explained. And it says that in order to simulate this, you have to crank up the water vapor 300% more than what Galileo measured in 1995. So these red storms are signaling a massive climate change, and that also, once again here, it says that the temperature may be increasing by up to 20 degrees Fahrenheit. And it's a huge, huge transition. The closest moon to Jupiter is Io, and Io's ionosphere is the charged particles in the atmosphere. That ionosphere has gotten 1,000% higher up off the surface, from 73 to 96. Yeah, it's unexpected. I mean, come on, you guys. The surface of Io got over 200% hotter. The entire moon, 200% hotter? That's crazy. That happened from 79 to 98. And they are surprised and they cannot explain it. At least finally we get some authentic, lifelike reactions out of these guys. Then Europa, the moon, this is what it was supposed to look like based on existing observations, but when they turned the Hubble Space Telescope on it, this is a photograph of what they saw. It's glowing like mad. I found this in the book Jupiter, which is an enormous book and it's expensive, of all these different scientific studies of the planet Jupiter and its satellites. Ganymede is the next one, 200% brighter in its brightness from 79 to 95. That's 16 years. Things are really cooking here. The solar system is going nuts, and its atmosphere got 1,000% denser during the same time. You're starting to see a pattern here. This is all NASA stuff here. Saturn grew this plasma torus. See that red ring? That wasn't anywhere near as dense in 1981 as it was 12 years later in 93. It grew 1,000% denser. Crazy. And now they found yet another one that's even bigger than that. They didn't even see it before. And now, as you can see in this diagram, it just showed up. This is a photograph that they could have taken well before 1995. If you could see in infrared, that's what it would look like. That stuff that you see down here, that wasn't there in infrared photos prior to 1995. It just showed up in 95. It's like the planet's on fire. It's heating up so much. And in 2004, we see this massive burst of X-rays that comes out from near the equator of Saturn. It's a huge burst at the magic 19.5 degree point, the geometric point, which I talk about in my all weekend events. Now, Saturn had a storm that started only just a couple of years ago. Massive. Check this thing out. This is another one of these ones that just was mind-blowing, and it was after I wrote the source field book that this happened. We're looking at this and we're seeing this incredible disturbance that starts like that and it quickly spreads all throughout 2/3 of the northern hemisphere of the planet. And it was all over the media. Look at this. You see this band that's now covered everything that's visible to us here on Earth. They cannot explain why this is happening, but something is going on. Something very interesting is happening on Saturn. Here's a series of time-elapsed photographs showing the progress of this incredible storm. Now, look, we've been looking at Saturn with telescopes for a long, long time. Ever since the invention of the telescope, everybody wants to look at it. You get that, you see those rings, it's like, oh yeah, there's Saturn. Nobody's ever seen anything like this before. If they did, it would have been documented. It hasn't ever been seen before. This is a huge, huge change. And they're calling it a massive storm on Saturn, and there's just lots and lots of data here. Let's read this. It says, this temperature spike is so extreme, it's almost unbelievable, especially in this part of Saturn's atmosphere, which is typically very stable. To get a temperature change of this scale on Earth, you'd have to go from the depths of winter in Fairbanks, Alaska, to the height of summer in the Mojave Desert. The storm grew so large by December 5th, 2010, that an equivalent storm on Earth would blanket most of North America from north to south and wrap around the planet many times.
If you liked this video and you want to see more amazing content, go ahead and check out the next video on our channel.